Come with me to a magical place where being labeled the pork queen is a compliment, where being nice is just a way of life, and where all leaders of the free world must pass through. Welcome to Iowa. Whether you're a current Iowan, an Iowa expat, or an Iowan at heart, this show is for you. This is the Iowa Podcast. Real Iowans, real talk, no drama. I'm Justin Brady, and joining me today is Dave Wilson, the founder of Taco. Maybe it might be better to start with what is Taco? And of course, thanks for joining, Dave. I appreciate it.
You're welcome. Well, first, Taco. I was a missionary in Turkey for over 30 years. And while I was there, through different means, we started a ministry called Taco, which at the time stood for Turkey Asia Creative Outreach. And it eventually became Taco Afro-Asia Creative Outreach as we started going to Africa. And then we started going to Europe. So eventually we decided to just call it Taco until somebody asked what it meant. So now we just say Taco. And unless somebody says, what does that stand for? How did you come up with that? We just say Taco.
There's a lot to get into. Obviously, the earthquake over in Turkey has been in the news, and that's why you're here, because you're an Iowan, you know all about Turkey. You said you lived there 30 years? Is that
Yes.
Seriously what you just said? I have forgotten how long you've been over there.
Over 30
Obviously,
years.
my word. Is the destruction and the loss of life, which is it's truly tragic. It's crazy to watch from over here in the United States, but is it all in one location, one city and town or area, or is it pretty much spread out around the country? That might be a good place to start.
It takes up, I would say, most of southeast Turkey, which is, it borders Syria, which has also been affected by the earthquake. Several thousand people have died there also. But the center was in southeastern Turkey, which covers about, my understanding is it about 10 provinces. A province would be like a state, but would be, I don't know the exact length and breadth of it, but it probably 300 or 400 miles east to west, and I don't know, maybe 100 miles, between 100 and 200 miles, the depth of it, or yeah.
So obviously that's not just the location that the earthquake affected, but that's where you're seeing the destruction and loss of life goes that far out.
Yeah, it does. And up until now, I haven't looked at the latest figures, but it rises daily by several thousand.
Wow.
Between 30 and 40,000 now have died. Yeah.
30 to 40,000.
Confirmed deaths. I mean, the rubble, there's just massive destruction of apartment buildings. Some areas, it's just all flattened. And so everybody in those buildings would be dead, or unless it's so massive that you can't get to most of the people that may still be alive in time.
So, oh my word. Can you give us, it sounds like it'll be hard, but can you give us some kind of idea of what the people in Turkey are dealing with? Like, is there any way you can communicate how widespread this problem is?
Well, of course, it affects families all over the country because it's such a large area in a sense. Basically the southeastern quarter of the country is affected, and there's relatives, of course, that are scattered around the country of those people. So I've heard of people in Istanbul, which is in the very opposite side of the country in the northwest, stories of their whole families who have died, that they're affected. So there's, in that sense, it's very, very widespread, and even beyond, of course, Turkey with the international connections. Yeah.
How have families been impacted by it? Obviously, you're mentioning entire families have been lost, but are there other ways families have been impacted? I just have no idea. I have nothing to compare this to, right? I can't possibly conceive. We've been recording now for just over 4 minutes, and I'm already blown away by how large this problem is. So is there any way to communicate like what the families are dealing with, what they see day to day right now?
Well, so there's the aspect of when whole families aren't, for example, destroyed from buildings falling down. They've been rescuing children where their families are gone, their parents are gone. I think, what's the figure I heard? What, 20 to 25 relatives in a single family that are almost all gone. And I know about 400 orphans, or probably far more than that by now, have been sent to Istanbul, to be connected with families who are signing up to take them, for example. Schools no longer exist. Hospitals no longer exist. I mean, it's just massive. And the almost 40,000 now that have perished, I expect by the time it's finished, that will be just a small part of it. I've heard one pastor that I know who he came up with the figure of possibly over 500,000 will die by the end.
Oh my word.
This is of historical proportions. There's nothing. I think there was an earthquake in Turkey in the first century or something that would be on that scale. But this is the biggest disaster in probably Turkish history. So it's massive, unbelievably massive. Yeah.
You mentioned like the systems that have been affected by it. You mentioned a few schools and hospitals. How widespread is the disconnect within the systems? Like is the grid down? Is plumbing down? Is anything still up? Do they have electricity and like basic access to food? Like how bad is that?
I think that isn't that bad because they have allowed international relief organizations to come in. So stuff is pouring in. I think it's more just because of the massive destruction that it's just hard to get it to them where they're at. It's not so much that there's not enough because roads. I mean, everything's affected. Like I said, hospitals, schools, roads. I didn't even mention roads and train tracks, and pretty much all other infrastructure is affected and is gone. So it's even hard for me to understand, even though I get reports, and of course because I have lots of friends who have been affected, and so I mean I have there's one friend that we have worked with a lot in the center of all of this, who has sent us messages saying in her area there's like 9 of 10 buildings are totally destroyed. Apartment buildings, and she just said in our area, if there are 10 buildings that are destroyed, and that's she estimated 70 people in each building, and so 350 people just dead like that. So
wow. And I think you just said something, the reports you're getting. And so I want to address that briefly because I'm thinking back to, we didn't actually address that, but you've obviously lived in Turkey for, you said 30 years, which is still crazy for me to think. But your relationship with the Turkish government has been off and on. So right now you are in Germany, correct?
Right. Yes.
Right. And so you basically, for lack of a better term, the Turkish government told you to leave, and so you're currently honoring their request to leave. And I know that but Taco itself is still very much active in Turkey. And what are some of the challenges that your ministry and the people you have on the ground? What are some of the challenges they're dealing with?
Well, I know I've been in contact with one of our girls there, and she's just gone through massive discouragement. And of course, this isn't abnormal that when it's in your area, when it affects you, it's hard to understand that everybody isn't totally decimated by this all over the world, because you see all this destruction and bad things happening, whether it's the war in Ukraine. We have a Ukrainian girl on our team, and this year she's gone through a massive, discouragement and battled with depression. But you can't understand it totally until you're part of it, until it's in your area, it affects you personally. So even me, I'm not there, so it's not affecting me like it would if I
Right.
had still been living in Turkey. So,
Is
um,
is the neighborhood that you used to live in, is that pretty much flattened, or
no, 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 because I lived in Istanbul.
you lived in Istanbul? So Istanbul is mostly not because Istanbul's
Okay,
not in the southeast corner.
no, no, it's in the northwest. It's on the other side of the country. But we did have a major earthquake in 1999 that was just around the Istanbul area. It wasn't it wasn't centered in Istanbul, but it affected Istanbul. People died in Istanbul, but it wasn't the main place. Yeah.
So this is obviously 1999 is the last time there was a major earthquake like this. So it's
Right.
not a thing that happens often there.
No, but it is still since every if you want to say every 20 years, I don't know when the biggest one before that was, but it's an earthquake zone, I guess you'd call it.
So, like you mentioned, it's really hard to get an idea of what it's really like. And obviously, over here, we have TV and photos, and that's pretty much it. I don't know if you're entirely familiar with the reporting over here in the U.S., but for the most part, is the coverage accurate? Has it been mostly accurate, or are there some areas that need clarification?
Uh, I haven't followed the American news that much, but I think it's pretty accurate. It's just um, I don't know the reports totally given to the American public. It's always different when you're on the ground in a place. And I know the figures often are less. I think, for example, the Turkish government in 1999 gave the official figures far less than the actual figures. I think in 1999, my wife Pam has said that the real death toll in 1999 was around 40,000.
Oh my
But
word!
I think the Turkish government, because she was right in the middle of it, she would know a lot more of that. But she, yeah, said that the official figure was maybe 15,000. I'm sorry, 15 million less than that.
Why is that? Like, what is there? Is there a reason that they don't want to give accurate numbers?
Yeah, I can't. If Pam was here, she could say more. But
That's okay. You can give me a general idea.
yeah, yeah, it has to do with something to do with it economically. That it affects if they give a larger figure, it costs the government more. I don't.
Oh, interesting. I had no
Yeah.
idea.
You'll have to look that up and research it for to get the details on that.
Yeah, I mean, so speaking of the government, right? You've been, I think, into the last leadership, you were on pretty good terms. But then I don't know if they call it the president, the new president, or the new administration, we may say
Yeah.
in the U.S. They didn't like you as much. So they obviously seem to be go from one side to the other, kind of at least from my perspective, it seems a little irrational. Do they have the situation mostly in hand? Do they have a good plan established, or are they a bit overwhelmed?
Oh, I think they're a bit. I think they're very much overwhelmed. It's just, well, it's not so much their fault. I would say it's just how do you handle something like this on this scale? So I wouldn't blame the government in the sense
Yeah.
of the earthquake that they're not doing enough. I think they're very, very involved. But one thing I could say is in 1999, and it's happening the same this time, is there will be many, many court cases. And people may wonder, well, why is there such massive numbers of deaths? And part of it, a big reason, especially in the southeast, which is less developed than like the north and the west of Turkey, that building contractors, to save money, don't follow the law on constructing buildings. So they put more water and more sand in the mix to build the buildings, which in the end, if there is something like an earthquake, there's a lot more deaths and destruction.
So that was going to be my next question.
Okay.
I'll go back to the government response and the kind of outside help they're allowing. But since you brought that up, I think that's a good That's a good thing that probably a lot of us in the U.S. don't understand. So it does sound like there are building codes because you're in an earthquake area that can be affected. So there are some building codes, but those codes aren't followed all the time. How are people able to get by with that?
I think, especially in areas, well, I would say, because a lot of buildings are built not in the last, say, 20 years.
Mm.
So these things weren't as detailed in their width, and the government didn't have these rules, 30, 40, 50 years ago.
Sure.
And of course, there's a lot of buildings built before the last 10 or 20 years. And I would also say this, because the Southeast is less developed, that there would be a lot less laws governing that in the Southeast.
Is it a poor area, the Southeast of the country?
Yeah, it's poor. It's where there would be the majority in the far Southeast would not even be ethnically Turkish. They would be ethnically Kurdish, or even in some parts Arab, because it's on the Syrian border, Iraqi border. Yeah.
Now, does the fact that they're Kurdish, does that impact? I don't know what the word is here, but the fact that they're Kurdish or within that certain region, does that put them at a disadvantage to getting help they need, or is that not a factor at all?
I would say not so much. There have been, for many, many years, there's a Kurdish, what would be called the Kurdish Republican Army, that is a terrorist group that is longing for a Kurdish nation. Kurdish nation. And so they have an idea to, cause problems in the southeast of Turkey. And so that's been going on for many, many years. Right. So but I wouldn't say there's especially at times like this, looking at it as something the Turkish government is giving less attention to. But through the years, it's just an underdeveloped area, and I don't know all the details of why, historically, why that's happened.
Yeah, because sometimes over here we hear at least in the news we'll hear like Turks versus the Kurds, right? That's what we hear, and I think a lot of people, myself included, Dave, I don't know the history there. I don't know what that means. I don't know the impact. Yeah, well, it has. They have been given a lot more rights in recent years. There was a time when I was in Turkey, in the early years that I was in Turkey, that the Kurdish language, you couldn't use it in schools. You couldn't. Wow.
It wasn't officially a language that could be spoken in Turkey. You couldn't write books in Turkish. Sorry, I keep saying Turkish, Kurdish. And so that has changed a lot. But that's only in recent times.
So going back to the government, are they allowing, obviously, they've kicked you out, but are they allowing other kinds of outside help from other countries? Are they allowing that, or are they being difficult about it? What's that situation like?
Yeah, I would say, they are allowing international groups in. So there's 13 million people who've been affected by this, 1 million displaced. We have friends in Ankara have said that the government is sending them to outlying provinces because there's not enough housing where they're at now. So there is a massive sending of people to other provinces. Like I said before, a lot of orphans are getting new families already. It's overwhelming.
What would you say, like, again, this is really hard to wrap anyone's mind around it, and I can't imagine even the local government has a good answer, but just based on what you're hearing and based on your history with the country, what does the next 3 months look like? I know that's probably a difficult question, but what does the next 3 months look like?
Well, Well, with what we do in Turkey, we have a team there. And I think basically a lot of the normal things they do will be suspended, basically. Um, yeah, so that it'll just be trying to get life somewhat back to normal. I mean, whole cities are basically um, destroyed. Like I said, this one city, and many of the neighborhoods, 9 of 10 buildings are totally finished. So I don't know how you deal with that. I don't know, have
Right.
any clue. Uh, it just takes time, and life will never be normal again for a lot of these areas. Basically, a new normal will go into effect. Um,
Right. I mean, do you think? I don't know if you've had any conversations because I don't. When you tell me that like the government has refused you or refused to let you back in, do you have certain contacts that you work with that are like, no, Dave, you still can't come back in? And is there any indication that maybe now they're interested in letting you and others come in to help?
no, I'm pretty sure. We received a very clear um, no entry ban, long term no entry ban. And without, I would say, without a change in government, there's no way we're getting back in anytime soon. We've had court cases we've lost at every level, and now our case is at the European Court of Human Rights. And
Wow.
since that's not a Turkish entity, even if we won that somehow, I don't know if that would get us back in. But without a change of government, I don't think we're getting back in. But most, of course, most people who are coming from outside to help are going to be able to get in because
Sure.
it's fairly easy for anybody generally to get into Turkey and get a 3-month visa to stay in. And
I mean,
so,
I've known you for a while, and obviously your heart for Turkey and the Turkish people is enormous. Are you able to share why Turkey doesn't want you? Because you've had, your scuffles with the Turkish government in the past. I know that they've beaten you. They've put you in prison multiple times. Are you able to share why the new leadership kicked you out,
yeah.
or you are able to
Well,
share that? I didn't prep that, so I didn't know if I was able to
so,
ask that or not.
so the present government isn't actually new. It's been in power for 20 years. Um, and they've given, I wouldn't say it was something that I did all of a sudden. The things we did got us in trouble because it's a 99.9% Muslim country, and we're proclaiming Christianity. We're trying to share the love of Jesus with people, and so that doesn't go over well in general. But so that is the reason I would say that we received a permanent entry ban. But in the last 4 years, so we were asked to leave in 2019, and that started after that, it was like since then, I should say, over 100 missionaries have been chucked out of Turkey.
Wow.
And recently, there's a new thing happening with a lot of people. This is the first time in my experience in Turkey that anybody newly coming into the country as a foreigner you could usually get a year or a 2-year residence permit, a tourist residence permit. That seems to be either coming to an end or greatly being limited. We just had a girl that had that rejected and from Hong Kong, and she's back in Hong Kong now, trying to find another way with a work visa or something to get back into the country. So it was always quite easy to come to Turkey, get a residence permit, and stay for a year, and then have that renewed year after year. But that is being greatly restricted right now.
Yeah, and that's so sad. I mean, can you give people an idea, for those who don't know you, can you give them an idea of what taco actually does in Turkey? Because
Sure.
obviously most people probably aren't familiar with what you do in Turkey.
Yeah. I initially did something called the Bible Correspondence Course, which was, I call it a net that we use to find people interested in the gospel and in Jesus. And we used every means possible to find people like that. So we had people send in letters from outside of Turkey, from all over the world. This was back years ago when we first started. and get names and addresses were in phone books, and people would get those and send letters into Turkey, and we would do the follow-up of that. And then as time went on, we started getting ads in newspapers, in magazines, newspapers, and then the internet came, and it just expanded more and more. And where today, it used to be 2 boxes under my bed and me doing it, and now we have a big team. We have our own building, and now like 2,000 people a month are writing in to get New Testaments and wanting to know more about Jesus. So, and out of that came Taco, which is another means we found to find people interested in the gospel, using creative arts, music, drama, unicycling, clowning, circus art, anything you can think of that's done well, to find people interested in the gospel. And then we would get venues around the country that would draw people. It allowed us to share the gospel with people in a way that wouldn't be affected by conventional means. We'd get arrested or stopped immediately if you stood up and started preaching. And then other countries started being interested in what we were doing. So now we've been in over 20 countries. And so we still have a team in Istanbul, even though we're gone. And we have teams in about 5 countries now, and about 40 people who are part of Taco.
Now, you mentioned that you get arrested if you just start preaching in the middle of the street or something. So is there a way to do it? Like, because, if you're doing the performing arts and the creative arts, how did you find these ways that were still compliant with local laws, but you were still able to have a ministry?
Well, we started by working in conjunction with, we through the Bible correspondence course, we had connections all around the country with missionaries, with churches, with people interested in sharing the gospel openly. And so we would go in, often we'd get permissions we'd either rent a place, or we'd get permissions to do something in parks, in city squares, in amphitheaters, in cultural centers. And then we would advertise and people would come. And because we were in control of the venue, often we'd get permission and we were in control of the venue. It allowed us to do it in a way that was legal. And then eventually, we had problems eventually, and then we decided to go out on the streets without permission. And because of our experience, we knew how much we could do, how much we couldn't do, which areas to do it in. We wouldn't go to the extremely Muslim areas. We do it in more secular areas. And so through that, we're still doing that. We're still going out every week on the streets in Istanbul, our team there, and doing artistic things and then sharing the gospel through that. And because we know what we're doing, we found that the authorities, we try to do short shows and not share the gospel until the end. And then when we do it at the end, then we're able to do it. And if nobody stops us, if the police don't bother us, we continue doing it.
Sure.
And if the police come, most they usually do, because the police usually operate according to complaints. So if there's no complaint, the police may come along and allow us to continue. So we continue to do that. Our methodology is different in every country. Some countries are more closed, some are more open. But we just look for ways to do it to attract especially Muslims, because that's our target audience.
So just to recap this with our last few minutes, about 30 to 40,000 people have perished in the earthquake right now. And you said, and that number obviously will probably go up, because there's no way that they can understand the full scale of what's going on right now. And then you also mentioned that somewhere around, and again, it's complete chaos there, so no one expects these numbers to be perfectly accurate, but somewhere around 400, likely more orphans so far. And you said they've been sent to Istanbul?
That was just one example.
Yeah, no, exactly. So, yeah. I mean, it's obvious that Turkey and the Turkish people are going to need a lot of help for years. And so is there something Iowans can do, people over in the United States? Are there things we can do? Or, because I know a lot of people don't want to sit on their hands, but they also don't know how to help. Can you fill in some of those gaps?
Oh, sure. There's, I don't know how, there's tons of organizations that you can contact to give money to the relief efforts. Taco has its own. we're having people donate through us, and then we get the money or the materials that the money buys to the people. So, yeah.
So it's mostly you have the channels established, and the thing that holds you back is simply funding and financing. Okay, well, I mean, I guess so that the obvious question is, how do people donate to Taco then? How do they get funding into your organization so you can get help into Turkey? And what does that help look like?
I can send you the address that you could write to or send support to. And then we, because of our connections all over the country with people, because we were there so long, we would get it to the places where the need is the greatest, or the people who are right on the site where the things are happening.
And would that be mostly in the form of like food and communication? What would that look like on their side?
It could be blankets,
sure, yeah,
clothing, winter clothing, food, and just the relief efforts that would entail getting people, maybe sending vehicles in, sending buses in for to take people out of the area, or even buses in for people to stay in to keep warm.
True, yeah,
in the area, and getting the massive amount of people that need to be relocated. So it's sort of all of the above.
Yeah. Dave Wilson, founder of Taco Ministries. I know it's complete chaos over there. I know you're extremely busy right now, but I really appreciate you coming on the Iowa podcast and giving Iowans firsthand perspective of what's going on in Turkey. Thank you very much for coming.
You're welcome. You're welcome.
And to my fellow Iowans, Iowa expats, and Iowans at heart, thanks for listening and subscribing to the Iowa podcast.